My voice remained calm and steady. Brenda's voice rose. Fine. Did you hear what I said? Yes, dear. You're going on a date with another man this Friday, I replied. And you're okay with that? Her surprise was impossible to miss. Not at all, but what choice do I have? Like you said, I don't control you. You're on your own. Your voice and expression tell me you're determined to go through with this. So what else can I do? I'll be back, she said. Don't let your fragile male ego get in the way. I love you, and I'll make it right. You'll see. Then you know it's wrong, I said, keeping my voice calm. What do you mean? I didn't say that, she shot back. Would your parents or mine agree with you? Brenda lowered her eyes, not answering. A dead giveaway. I let the silence linger. It wasn't visible, but I knew the thought was lingering in her mind. You know, and I know they wouldn't, I continued. You know what you're doing is wrong. You just admitted it. What? When? She asked defensively. Why else would you say you'll make it up to me? If it were just dinner with friends, you wouldn't have to make anything up. Or if you were going to get a haircut, you wouldn't feel guilty. You said it because you know it's wrong, and because you know it makes you an awful person. Her voice wavered. But you said I could. No, I didn't. I've never said that, and I never will. All I admitted was that I can't stop you, but I certainly don't approve. I wish you'd stay with me. We could go to the same restaurant and then to the same dance club. But it's not about food or dancing, is it? You want someone else's company, and that someone isn't me. She remained silent, her head tilted upward in defiance. What's his name, Brenda? Am I right? Again, silence. What's his name? I pressed. It doesn't matter, she mumbled. It does matter, I said firmly. I'm not going to argue about it. But just know this. I don't want you running around with Mr. Hound, and meeting him on Friday will have consequences. Consequences? What do you mean? She asked, her voice tinged with uncertainty. Think about it, I said. You're smart, Brenda. You can guess the consequences yourself. But if you think I'll just stand by while you throw our marriage away, you're wrong. You're bluffing, she sneered. You love me. You always give me what I want. I'll come back, and we'll love each other and grow old together. I can't stop you from doing stupid things, I said, standing up and grabbing my keys. But you've been warned. You're on your own. Without another word, I left before she could respond. When I stayed silent, Brenda looked at me again, her eyes widening like saucers. Holy, you look gorgeous. Where are you going? Outside. What did you think? I replied, mimicking her earlier condescending tone, that your weak, ignorant husband would just sit at home waiting for her promiscuous majesty to grace him with her presence. Shaking my head slowly, I opened the door to the garage and added in a reproachful tone, and here I thought you were smart. How can one person be so wrong? Well, I don't want to be late. Charmaine doesn't tolerate that. I got into my freshly cleaned truck, hearing Brenda's shocked shout behind me as I smiled to myself. Gotcha. Charmaine and I had a fantastic evening. We went to a classy wine bar that served light dinners and featured live piano music on weekends. A small dance floor added to the ambience. At work, Charmaine and I had already discovered that our conversations flowed effortlessly. Tonight, it was even better. She genuinely appreciated my humor. Yes, it's a cliché, but it's true. Few things win a man's heart faster than a woman laughing at his jokes. Dancing with Charmaine was like making love in shoes. Our movements synced perfectly, and more than once, our lips brushed each other's cheeks, ears, and, briefly, lips. There was a magical energy as our bodies pressed close. Still, we both knew the situation. I was married, and we respected what that meant and what it didn't. We spent a long, relaxed evening sipping wine, letting our eyes play flirtatious games while we chatted. Brenda, as I've said, is beautiful and passionate. But passion has its darker side, jealousy. I was almost certain that the thought of me dancing with and possibly kissing Charmaine would drive Brenda insane, ruining the fun she was likely having with her lustful Mr. Hound. When I dropped Charmaine off at her apartment, she did me the favor of leaving a small trace of her presence, a drop of her perfume on my shirt and smears of her freshly painted lipstick on my collar and cheek. As she kissed me on the cheek, she smiled and said, "Go get her, Tiger." We laughed as I got into my truck and headed home. It was barely 10 p.m. when I walked into what I now called the Big Chill. "Where the hell have you been?" Brenda demanded. "None of your business," I replied casually. "You never told me where you went with your mysterious Mr. Hound. I'd ask if you use protection, but honestly, I don't care if you're rotting from the inside out anymore. I'll never touch your cheating body again. So why would it matter?" Brenda stared at me, her face a mixture of shock and confusion. "I had a wonderful time, though," I continued, "and I'm very grateful to you for it." "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice shaking. "Thank you," I said with mock sincerity. "Don't you see? If you hadn't decided to open up our marriage, I never would have had the chance to get to know Charmaine better. What a woman, smart, funny, and stunning. So, thank you, darling." Brenda screamed at the top of her lungs, so loud I briefly wondered if the neighbors would call the police. "You know I hate her," she shrieked. "Exactly," I said with a smirk. "Why do you think she was the first person I called?" She stared at me, stunned. What did you just say?" Once again, I shook my head in mock disbelief. "I seem to have overestimated your intelligence. Think, Brenda. This isn't rocket science. You decided to humiliate me by dressing up for some anonymous man, wearing clothes you've never worn for me, and you're surprised when I follow your lead." I leaned in slightly, my voice firm. "You renegotiated the terms of our marriage without my objection. So, I simply did what you did. The only difference is that I was honest enough to tell you who I was with. Meanwhile, you're too ashamed of your accomplice to even name him. So, tell me, Ms. Rocket Scientist, what exactly is your problem?" Brenda deflated before my eyes, the wind knocked out of her sails. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she stammered. Before she could catch her breath, I pressed on. "Let me guess. Kevin South didn't give you the attention you were hoping for tonight." A high-pitched squeal, filled with frustration and pathos, escaped her lips as she clamped her hands over her mouth. "How do you know?" she whispered, her voice trembling. Using the exaggerated tone of a game show announcer, I said, "Once again, Brenda's brilliant mind is on full display. Think, woman. You work in an office with at least 10 other women. Kevin is the biggest flirt and serial dater in the building. Everyone knows what he's like. You know how office gossip works," I said, my voice sharp and deliberate, piercing through the suffocating silence. "Everyone knows who's sleeping with who, Brenda, and they talk about it. That's what you did. Did your pea brain ever stop to think, even for a second, that you wouldn't be the exception?" Her face drained of color, and I saw her hands tremble slightly. My words hung in the air, heavier than the tension between us. "For over a month now," I continued, my voice laced with restrained anger, "your so-called friends have been telling me everything. Not only did you fall for Kevin's sweet-talking nonsense, but you started looking for him yourself. One of your co-workers even called it, googly-eyed, they said. Did he make you feel special, Brenda? Like you were the only one? Who knows? Maybe he dumped her for you." Her lips parted, but no words came out. The shock in her eyes betrayed her. She wanted to deny it, to defend herself, but I wasn't finished. "Let me tell you something else, Brenda. Rumor has it Kevin planned to make you a special project tonight. He even booked a room at the Marriott. Classy, huh? Apparently, that's where he treats his first night flings. After that, it's straight to Motel 6 or the woman's house. Tell me, Brenda, did you know that?" Her wide eyes glistened with unshed tears, and the reality of her own humiliation began to sink in. She had no idea how much of a fool she made of herself, or me. The betrayal, the naivety, It all came crashing down on her at once. She finally broke, her voice choked with sobs. "Oh, Rick, I'm so sorry. You're right. I'm such a fool. How can you even stand being married to someone as stupid as me?" I let out a bitter laugh, cold and unfeeling. "Brenda, the good news is I don't have to." Her sobbing stopped as if she'd been slapped. "I'm done," I said, my voice icy and resolute. "You'll be served tomorrow, after breakfast," she gasped, her hands clutching her chest as though the weight of my words had physically struck her. But where will you go?" "Charmaine said I could stay with her while I figure things out," I replied bluntly, my tone cutting like a blade. "She's got a second bedroom she uses as an office." And when I told her I'd be filing tomorrow, she laid out some very enticing terms. The kind of terms a smart, loyal woman can offer. Brenda's tears fell harder now, her sobs uncontrollable. But I didn't stop. "We'll split everything 50-50ths. After that, you're free to sleep with whoever you want guilt-free. No more wimpy husband holding you back." I hope Kevin was worth it, Brenda. The weight of my final words crushed her. She collapsed onto the couch, her face buried in her hands, sobbing into the cushions. Later, I learned more about Kevin, or as some called him, Mr. Hound. He'd left a trail of heartbreak and betrayal among several women and their husbands. I even met some of the men he had wronged. One night, Kevin returned from a dinner date to find his car completely trashed. Windows smashed, paint scratched, baby poop smeared across the seats, and the wheels stolen. While he stood there surveying the damage, 3 masked men, dressed in black, emerged from the shadows. They robbed him without a word, beating him to within an inch of his life. The police were baffled. Why would robbers go after his wallet, his fake Rolex, and his family jewels? They had no leads, no witnesses. The parking lot cameras had been conveniently painted over. That same night, I was playing poker with a few of those husbands. Funny coincidence. Kevin moved out of state shortly after recovering. No one cared where. Brenda, devastated and humiliated, moved into a small apartment. When she realized I was happy with Charmaine, she couldn't bear it and left the state too. I never saw her again. Charmaine and I stayed together for a while. And while our chemistry was undeniable, we both realized that short-term passion wasn't enough to sustain a long-term future. We parted on good terms, and I moved into a townhouse closer to work. With time, I grew stronger, wiser. I hit the gym regularly, and as fate would have it, found common ground with someone who shared my values. It started small, just a spark during casual conversations. But that spark grew. This time, I found happiness with someone who had real intelligence and unwavering loyalty. The kind of love built not on fleeting desire, but on trust, respect, and understanding.